Well, hello. So does anyone else love vintage maps like I do? Well, I've wanted one for a long time, so I decided to create one. But in order to get that nice weathered appearance, I'm gonna have to upcycle some cardboard. So the first thing I do is cut out a piece of cardboard that matches the size of my canvas, which in this case is a 24 by 36 inch, and then I spray paint my world map stencil onto that piece of cardboard, so I then have a template that I know where all of my continents are, so that I can then start destruction or revealing the luscious corrugated texture without taking away from where I know I'm going to put the continents onto the cardboard later. The spray paint is mainly a guide. It's all going to be covered up later, but what I wanted to do is make sure that I didn't remove any of the flat surface that I'm going to be putting the continents on, and then I can work around them. And I kind of cut an organic shape around all of the continents, so I get this really cool kind of vintage map look to this that can then be attached to the canvas. Okay, so in my last video, I failed to mention the kind of hardener that I use, and that was a very common question in the comment section, and I had to repeat myself quite a bit. So I use a Powertex textile hardener. It's Powertex Universal Medium, and there is a link in the description if you are interested in purchasing this product. I absolutely love it because not only does it create a bond between the cardboard and the canvas, but it also hardens it at the same time, and it creates this sort of seal so that you can really use water-based mediums on top of the cardboard without it getting soft and squishy, because that is obviously not ideal. You don't want soft, squishy cardboard on your canvas. It'll take forever to dry. So I do add the Powertex to the top of the cardboard as well, and that will create a seal on the top of the cardboard. It will harden it really nicely, and then I let it dry completely. Well, I've said it before and I'll say it again, but yeah, there's never enough texture. So the second layer of texture that I'm adding, and I did say before that I was going to be covering all of the Smurf continents up, that was so that I wouldn't tear any of that paper off where the continents were going to go, but I do want to add a little bit of texture to the top, and then I want to add a layer of gesso once that is completely dry, so I have an even painting surface, like basically a blank textured canvas to work on later. So the gesso is also going to once again create even more of a seal, and it's also going to give the surface a little bit of tooth where that cardboard is added and it doesn't have any modeling paste on it, so the paint will adhere really nicely to that. Then I mixed a little bit of the modeling paste with some gesso so that I could once again add a little bit of my decorative filler, which is something that you can buy pretty much at most craft stores. You can find it in like the floral section or sometimes even in the wedding section. And it's just one of those, like, they're little pebbles. They're little pebbles, and they work really well for adding kind of, if you wanted to add like a look of corrosion to your paintings. This is one way that you can achieve that look. And then, once again, let it dry. Well, now that all of that texture has completely dried, I can start adding some color to the canvas. And I usually like to start with some kind of base color and just cover the whole entire canvas with that color. For this, I am starting with a turquoise shade, and that's mainly because there's a whole lot of ocean. And so I decided that because that's going to be covering a lot of this painting, the best way to start was with the color that is pretty much going to be covering a lot of the surface. So in this case, I did start with a turquoise, and then I think one of the best ways to learn how color works is by using transparents and layering them on top of each other, because this gives you an idea of what color combinations turn into other colors. So for instance, I used a combination of turquoise and then I layered a little bit of dioxazine purple and removed some of that paint, and then went in with a burnt umber, and that created a really cool kind of green, brown, earthy shade, and then went over that with another kind of bluer turquoise with a squeegee, and then remove some of that paint. And what you end up getting is a really interesting surface that you can then work even more layers onto. So now that I have a really good base color for the ocean, it's time to add my continents. And for this, I taped my stencil down by using the masking tape underneath the stencil so that it doesn't lift up. And then I added fiber paste and created the continents a little bit raised off of that ocean, which gives it a really cool 3D effect. Well, all right, the continents are in place. So what do I do now? Well, I want to kind of work on the border of the painting and create that level that drops off from where that corrugated cardboard ends and then those little rocks begin. So I start by putting a base color onto that edge, and then I start layering other colors on top of that and kind of making decisions as I go. Now, one of the things that you can do with this kind of, I don't know, this process or whatever, is you could use whatever color scheme that you wanted. I had thought of a couple of different things that I could do. I went with the vintage style map, but you could do black and gold, you could do all kinds of different things, and it would just depend on how you wanted to apply your paint in order to create the effect that you want. So once I had the border kind of the way that I wanted it, I was going for more of that corrosion look, I suppose. And then I started painting my continents and kind of just putting a base color onto the continents and then deciding where I wanted to go from there. Now, I had a couple of different thoughts in mind when I started doing this, and I kind of changed my mind a couple of times. I was like, oh, well, you know, I think I want them to be a little bit lighter. I think I want the ocean to be a little bit darker, bordering all of the continents. And then, of course, you know, what happens is I change my mind several times and just continue to layer paint until I get the effect that I want. So I thought these continents to be a bit bright. So what I ended up doing was taking a little bit of a turquoise and layering it on top of it in order to kind of neutralize it or knock back that like really orange color, and that worked really well. It ended up looking a little bit more distressed, so I was getting there. I was definitely getting closer to where I wanted to be as far as the continents looked, and then some of the areas where the ocean was a little bit darker, I liked the color, but I needed to brighten it up a little bit. So once I did that, I decided to go in with a burnt umber acrylic ink, and there it was. That's what I wanted. I wanted that really washed out appearance. It almost made it look like weathered leather, which was really, really cool. So that's actually how I finished this painting, and I think it ended up looking really awesome. I do have a longer, more detailed video on my Patreon. If you're interested in seeing that, head over there. But in the meantime, thank you for watching, and I love you guys. I will see you in the next video. Bye!